Well, first of all, thanks for being here. I really
Sure.
appreciate it. And it is exciting that there's actually live hockey events and activities to discuss.
No
So,
doubt.
yeah.
Um,
But before we get into that, just tell people who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Josh. I cover the Penguins for The Athletic. Um, I've covered the Penguins for many outlets over the years, but I've been at The Athletic for 2.5 years now, I think. The days all blend together right now, so you know how that goes. But almost 3 years now. But yeah, so I've been covering hockey forever. It's not like a horrible life to go from hockey rink to hockey rink and write about hockey. It's cool.
That's pretty solid. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun.
It,
But
it's, it's
so
not
how
the
did
worst.
you get into that?
When I was a kid, I went to high school in Peters Township in the South Hills, and you go to Peters Township. It's a pretty affluent area. A lot of children of doctors and lawyers and such. And I found that I just wasn't as good in school as some of them were, and I kind of felt like an idiot. And then I realized I was pretty good at writing, though, and I really like sports, so I decided to kind of merge the two. And by the time I was in high school, I kind of had a sense of what I wanted to do, maybe. And I went to college at Point Park, and they have a pretty good journalism program, and one thing led to another, and it just kind of fit nicely for me. I don't know what else I would be doing with my life if I weren't doing this. I don't even think about it because it might not be a pretty answer. I don't know.
Well, you don't
Uh,
have to think about it, so that's a good thing.
but yeah, right. But it
Yeah.
worked out okay.
Yeah. That's so cool. I love it. I've said this before on the podcast, and I tell people pretty openly, like for a little bit there, I considered going back to school after I dropped out for a degree in sports journalism because I love sports and I love writing. And as somebody who loves to write, I really appreciate great and thoughtful writing. So that's why I love all the work that you do because you so effortlessly weave in heart into the game, kind of how the way that you write it comes from a place of obviously covering the sport but bringing that human element to it as well, and that's what I love about it because that's what I love about sports in general.
Well, I appreciate that. First of all, some people like to write about analytics and numbers, and I don't have a problem with that, but it's just not me.
Hmm.
It's not really what I like to read about, and it's not how I like to focus. I mean, hockey, all sports, but hockey, it's a game of people. It's
Hmm.
a game of emotion, and in terms of the players and the fans watching it. It just is. And growing up here, I grew up a Penguins fan like everyone else here, and I certainly grew an appreciation for that and kind of the connection between the fans and the team, and I've always appreciated that. It's like that in a lot of cities, but in Pittsburgh, I really do think it's a little different, and
Hmm.
we take our sports a little more seriously here, as evidenced by the wall behind you. I mean,
Exactly.
that's just how it is, right? So no, I appreciate that. When I write an article, I literally pretend like there's people sitting beside me in a bar and I'm talking to them, and that's how I like to do it. I don't try to write over anyone's head or bore people with math, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's how I roll, and I'm glad you like it. I hope other people do too.
I know other people like it. It's yeah, I think that I can appreciate the people who really geek out over stats because if if that's what you love about the game, then that's what you love about the game. But I like to take the approach of I I think and believe that sports can appeal to everyone. And you do start to sort of box out that demographic of people who may be on the fringe of fanship if you get a little too far down into the stats. And I'll be completely honest, I see certain things pop up on Twitter like defensive stats in particular,
Mhm.
like for Letang and Dumoulin and Jack Johnson most specifically, but no idea what any of those mean. I have no clue. And the thing is, I just don't really care to, because I won't even claim to say that because it's stats versus the eye test, and that's typically the the Twitter debate. Like, if a player passes the eye test, then the stats don't matter, but the stats do matter because the eye test can be faulty. But ultimately, what it comes down to for me is, are they winning championships?
Well, and I find that typically the eye test and the stats do match up.
Mm,
Not always, but I don't need Corsi or Fenwick to know that the Penguins usually have the puck when Chris Letang is on the ice
yeah.
or when Crosby's on. Well, yeah, no kidding. Like, and you can. There are benefits with the stats, but I hear what you're saying and I like it. And you mentioned something earlier about just kind of. I think you're talking about the crossover appeal of sports,
Hmm.
and I've always been fascinated by that. When I was a kid, I was born in 1980, and so when I was a kid, like in the 90s, my mom and I had season tickets for Steelers games at the River
Mm,
Stadium. And when I was like a teenager, I would look around and I would think to myself, what other thing in this world could bring together people from all demographics who are all cheering for one common thing? You know, you would see a rich businessman, you know, from the suburbs sitting beside a couple of inner city kids, and otherwise they might not know each other at all, but there they are hugging each other because
yep.
Jerome Bettis scored a touchdown. Like, I would think stuff like that, and that was just interesting to me. And that's, to me, that's the beauty of sports. It
Yep.
really is. It brings cities together and people together, and that, I mean, sports has its dark sides too, but that's the beauty of sports. And I always, you know, there's a lot of soul in sports, and there's a lot of soul in sports fans, and I identify with that a little bit. I really do.
Yeah. It's a crazy cool thing how it really does tie people together. I went to game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals back in 2017 when we were playing Nashville, and
I remember it well.
yeah, it was a great game. It was such a good game. And I actually lived in Nashville at the time and drove up for
Yeah.
that game. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I
We could have
remember,
carpooled.
what's that?
We could have carpooled. I did
We
the same
probably
thing.
could have. Oh my gosh, I should have just hopped on the team bus. Um, but yeah, I was standing room only up at the very top, and I don't know any of the guys' names who were around me. I probably couldn't even tell you what they look like, but we all bonded so much it
Mhm.
over the course of that 2 hours or so that we spent watching the Pens just pound Nashville the whole time, high-fiving, cheering together. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'll never see them again, but it's just so awesome to me that it didn't matter what else was going on in any of our particular lives. It was just like, we're here for this game, and this is awesome. It's such a good game.
Yeah. Oh, sports is the ultimate escape. And that's one thing that's been, and I love all sports. Like, I cover hockey and I love it, but I love baseball and football
Mm,
too. And like during the summer, like if I'm having a bad day, there's nothing I like to do more than just go to PNC Park and just forget about my life for 3 hours.
yeah.
The greatest thing ever. Even if the Pirates stink, it doesn't matter because it's just such a beautiful, peaceful place. I miss that right now so
Mhm.
much. Sports offers that, and not really many other things do. So no, I'm on board. And the game you mentioned, Game 5 against Nashville, probably if I had to pick, may have been the greatest game Sidney Crosby ever played. So that's a good one for you to have. It was that your first Stanley Cup final game, I'm guessing.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, those
Uh,
things are expensive. I know. They let me in for free. I get lucky, but
that's amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was a birthday gift from like 3 different people, cuz
okay.
that was all I wanted that year.
When's your birthday? I need to know.
June 10th.
All right, I like to know what I'm dealing with. I have a Gemini young lady. All right, I got you.
Aha, that's right. Yes, and it's wonderful because my birthday always outside of this year lines up with the Stanley Cup Finals.
Right.
So I remember the year before when we beat San Jose, it happened a couple days after, and then back in 2009, it was around the same window, like I think June 12th, right?
That
Something
was
like that.
yes.
Yeah, game 7. Oh my gosh. That was I've never been more stressed in my life than watching that game against Detroit. Oh my goodness. Uh, was a
Yeah,
good
well,
game.
that one, I mean, yeah, that one was not good for respective blood pressures in the tri-state
No.
area. But like I always tell people, if you want to cheer for a good team, that's part of the deal. You're going to
Yep.
have some close calls. They're like, I'm trying to think of whatever are really horrible for, like the Florida Panthers don't get many games like that because they always stink, right?
Terrible.
That's part of being a sports fan, I guess.
Yeah, it is. And that's what makes it even better when they win. Kind of jumping back to the Pirates, I every now and then will let myself daydream off into the future where we live in a world where they're in the World Series. And I I just think about how big of a deal that will be for Pittsburgh and then for me too. Like I can't imagine any moment topping that because they've been bad for so long. And
And
uh
I'm lucky. I'm 40, so I've seen the Penguins win 5 cups in my life.
mhm.
I was a kid in '91 and '92, but I remember them well. I've seen the Steelers win a couple of Super Bowls. I don't know if I'll ever see the Pirates win a World Series, but I will tell you the most fun I've ever had as a sports fan was probably the night of the blackout game, the
Yep.
Johnny Quinn game.
Oh,
I was at PNC Park, and my colleague and friend Rob Rossi and I were both there, and we ended up like hanging out on the Clementi Bridge and holding court until about 3 in the morning.
oh
You
my
just didn't
goodness.
leave because you
Yeah.
knew you'd seen something that you didn't think you'd ever see. A
Yep.
special night like that. It was great fun.
I think most Pittsburgh sports fans would say that that was top 3 favorite all-time memories.
Hmm.
I think it might edge out every other memory for me just because of how rare it was and because of how unexpected it was and then the intensity of the game and being able to just feel that watching on TV. Like it was wild. And I was at college at the time and we were all watching in our union area. I couldn't even hear anything in there because we were going so crazy. But
Oh no.
yeah, when he dropped that ball, we knew
Yeah,
something good was about to happen.
I've never been a part of a crowd like that. We never sat down the whole game. I
Oh
was
my
sitting behind
goodness.
third base. I was in section 127. We never sat down. It was just everyone standing the whole time. I've
How
never.
could you? How could you sit down during that?
No, it's right, but it's funny because usually at games at PNC Park, like the atmosphere is not that great. It's the Pirates, but for
Yeah.
those 3 years and for that night, that was October 1st, 2013. That was I will never forget that night. That was very special, and it just goes to show what a sports town Pittsburgh is and how important it
Hmm.
is for our community. It's not really quite like that in other cities, I don't think.
No, because look at the Pirates' history up to that point. They had losing seasons for like 20 years straight.
Yep.
And all it took was making a wild card game in the postseason for the whole city to rally around
All
the
right.
team. And yeah, I wish that we were able to have that more consistently, but at the same time, it does make that one particular game a lot more special. But
No,
yeah,
it does.
Pittsburgh's crazy.
Of course, we're also a little spoiled when it comes to the other two teams in town. This is something to keep in mind,
Hmm.
uh, especially. Well, I don't know. I mean, the Penguins and Steelers both. Even though the Steelers haven't won a Super Bowl in more than a decade, they're always competitive.
Hmm.
They're always good. They have such of a tradition, and the Penguins, the young. How old are you?
I am 27.
Okay. Oh, you're right in the perfect age range. Your age range is so
Yeah,
spoiled.
yeah, we
Penguins.
are.
It's the Crosby era for people who started becoming Penguins fans when they were 10 or 15 years old. Like they're always good. They're
Mhm.
always in the playoffs. They've won so many cups now. So you do get spoiled, but I always tell people don't take it for granted.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Bad times do come eventually to every franchise. I'm sure it'll be the case with them as well at some point. Although I still think
Hmm.
we're a few years away from that. Luckily,
Yeah,
uh, yeah, it's been a fun ride, no doubt.
it has been. I can very vaguely remember the the bankruptcy issues and then the potential selling of the team. I don't remember a whole lot. And even then, the Steelers were still riding kind of consistently as a competitive team in the playoffs. So even though the Penguins were struggling in the late 90s, early 2000s, right before we started to turn it around, yeah, it was I was too young to really appreciate what was going on,
Mhm.
but I know that we've had it pretty good the last couple decades as Pens fans.
Yeah, I promise you that is very much the case. I'm friends with people from places like Buffalo and Cleveland, and I assure you they
Ugh,
have been through hell as sports fans most of their lives.
yeah.
Pittsburgh, certainly can't say that. We're lucky, especially with the Rooneys and the
Hmm.
Steelers, Mario and Ron Burkle and the Penguins. These are people who don't like to lose, who are going to spend their own money to win, who are committed to it, and who I think for the most part conduct themselves and their franchises in a pretty classy way.
Yeah.
It's professional sports. There's going to be some incidents. It's not always going to be perfect, and it hasn't been. But I think Pittsburgh sports fans, for the most part, can feel proud to say, "Hey, I'm a Steelers fan. I'm a Penguins fan." Like, there's something good about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I would never want to have to deal with Cleveland teams most specifically, but yeah, the Sabres, when was the last time they did anything?
Well, they've never won a cup. I think they were in the final in 1999, maybe. So yeah, I mean, it's been a while.
Man.
That's of course they made up for it by losing four straight Super Bowls in Buffalo. So
Yeah,
uh,
that's a good way to ease
yeah,
pain.
they've dealt with a lot of misery. They make up for it by having like the worst winters of any city in our country. So no wonder everyone in Buffalo is depressed. That I know,
Yeah.
for good reason.
I was just gonna say, why would anybody live there? Oh my goodness.
Well, it's only a half hour from Niagara Falls, so there's
There you
that.
go. And they have good wings, so
They
there's
sure
that.
do. Go to the Anchor Bar, Duff's, you're good to go. So, I actually like people from Buffalo. They have character because they've had to overcome a lot of adversity.
Yeah,
Or Cleveland are just kind of annoying, I find, for the most
yeah.
part. Not
They're
always.
they're just kind of like bratty a little
There's a
bit.
mean spiritedness about them, I
Hmm.
find.
Yeah, but Buffalo, specifically fans of the Bills, I really respect them because
Oh,
that Bills Mafia is wild.
they
And
mean business. Yeah,
yeah.
I do too. They traveled in droves to Pittsburgh for the Sunday night game last year. I always respect that. When I was a kid,
Mhm.
I was like teenager, early 20s, college age, whatever. Like my buddies and I would always go to games in places like Cincy and Cleveland. It was really easy to get tickets
Mhm.
to those places. It was cheap. We wouldn't have any money, right?
Right.
But I always respect fans that travel to other cities. Like I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
And Buffalo fans are awesome. No, I have like full respect for the Bills Mafia, indeed.
Yeah. It was kind of cool to watch how excited they got when the Bills clinched the playoff spot last year because they went ham. They were just so excited. And
They were.
I because the Bills are really haven't done much in my lifetime, it was just fun for me as a fan of the game
Hmm.
to see how they engaged with it and how how much that meant to them.
Oh
Because
no,
yeah, it's super cool. I like that kind of stuff.
no, I like pulling for cities that care about their teams more. Like there are some sport,
Mhm.
like I'm not saying there are good sports fans everywhere, but there are some cities that don't care as much. Cities like Los Angeles,
Yeah.
Miami, DC, because nobody's from there. Like sports just aren't as important in those cities.
Hmm.
It really. And so I know the people of Buffalo. Like, what else is there to do on a Sunday afternoon in November in Buffalo, New York? Nothing. You're going to the Bills game, or you're watching the Bills game. So
Yep.
no, it's like Pittsburgh in some ways in that regard. So if the Steelers are out of it, like I don't get to cheer anymore being a journalist and all,
Hmm.
but I'm still a Steelers fan. I admit it. And, but trust me, I am. And Mark Cabali, my good friend who covers the Steelers for the Athletic, like I just blow his phone up during games. Like, what the
Mm.
hell was that call? What was that? I admit it. It's my chance to be a Yinzer once a week.
I love
Uh,
it.
but yeah, when the Steelers are out of it, I certainly cheer for cities that haven't won
Hmm.
as much, or if it means more to them. Like Kansas City hadn't won a Super Bowl since what the early '70s, I think.
Yeah,
So
it's
that
been a while. That was awesome. And one one specific game that immediately came to mind was it was 2 years ago in the playoffs. and the Steelers had lost earlier in the day to Jacksonville. We got our asses handed to us, and I was obviously disconnected at that point. But the Vikings Saints game came on, and I was
Uh,
just kind of watching it with my parents, and being able to see live that very last play down at the last few seconds, how Case Keenum scrambled around and got the ball to Stephon Diggs, and how he stayed in bounds like that was almost like, not like watching the Steelers win, but it was just as fun as a spectator of the game to be like,
mhm.
wow. And knowing people from Minnesota who were losing it because they finally won a playoff game and it was against the Saints, like that was a fun game to watch, especially like right after the Steelers got kicked out.
Yeah, I think I pulled the thing where I just turned the TV off after the games. I was so
Mm.
mad.
That was a
But
terrible
but no,
game.
but you're right. That was a magical moment for sure. It's funny as a sports fan though, like the games, like the losses stick with you more than the wins. I find, like for me, I don't know. I tend
Mhm.
to brood over things when I get mad.
Yep.
I was 12 years old when the Pirates lost to the Braves in Game Seven.
Oh,
I'm glad that you're young enough that you didn't have to experience that awful Wednesday evening, October 14th, 1990, 10:57. Yeah, because my mom didn't let me go to school the next day. I was in seventh grade.
wow.
Said, Josh, I don't think you're in any condition to go to school. Like I was still crying the next morning. Like, I think you're right, mom. She was a cool mom.
Yep. My mom mentions that game at least once. It comes up once a year, if
Oh
not
yeah.
more, because of how Sid Bream, like that's all I know. Sid Bream. And she's still heartbroken over it. And that's why she doesn't really
Yeah.
engage with sports the same way that she used to, because that game just wrecked her.
Yeah. I know a guy who had to go to therapy over that game. I'm not kidding. Like he went to therapy for 2 years. He was a bit older than me. No, like there should be a society of people who had their lives permanently altered by that particular night,
Oh, it
because
sounds terrible.
they didn't just lose in horrible fashion, but you knew, like Barry Bonds was a free agent. You knew he was gone.
Mm,
You knew they didn't have any money, so they didn't just lose that series like that. You knew that was kind of the end of an era. We didn't know it would be 20 years before they were any good again, but
jeez.
unfortunately, that was the case. Yeah, that was. Oh my God, that was awful.
Man, I'm glad that I missed that, because
You-
I don't know what that would have done to my poor little heart.
it was not a good moment for my childhood at all. So it definitely, I literally think about it every day. I'm not gonna lie. My
Oh,
girlfriend, I think she'll say, "So how bad of a mood are you in right now? Like 1 to 10, like 10 being October 14th." I'm like, "It's so cute that you really. I appreciate that, but you didn't need to bring that date up. That was unnecessary."
yeah, uncalled for. Don't.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah,
Man, that's too much.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about something good.
Yeah, let's be
Uh,
positive.
yeah. So NHL training camp, that's
Yeah.
going on right now. Are you able to be there?
Yes. In fact, I
Okay.
was there earlier today. I believe there are 12 members or 12 media
Hmm.
outlets are allowed per day. You're allowed to send one person. So I have been there the last few days. It's been very nice just to be in the rink, just to see
Yeah.
actual played, even if it's just practice.
Hmm.
That's exciting. I will not be in Toronto when the games start on August 1st. Most American reporters won't be. It's almost
Yeah.
impossible to cross the border right now. And the NHL really doesn't want us there. They're not even making players available for interviews. It's all on Zoom.
Wow.
So really no point. It's a ton of money too. So
Yeah.
it's not, there's no real point in being there. If
Hmm.
they make it to the conference final and cup final will be played in Edmonton. I
Okay.
suspect I suspect I will be there for that if they make it that far. I think they'll send
Well,
me
I
at that
hope.
point. Yeah, but and maybe the policies will be a little different. Things are a
Hmm.
lot better in Alberta. Pretty much everyone's healthy there, so that's good.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, there's progress somewhere at least, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but just getting to be there at practice every day has been cool. And the good news for Penguins fans, they look great. Like I mean, all the big names like Crosby, Malkin, they look unbelievable. You can see what great shape they're in. The whole team, to me, looks good. I think there's a lot of reason for optimism right now.
Oh, good. That is wonderful to hear. Um, because obviously they're not really sharing a ton from training camp. And any, like, I saw that Sid had to leave early from the scrimmage today, and they didn't really say why. Like, they're being very they're playing it close
Most of
to
the
the vest. Yeah.
vets.
Yeah.
Um, they are, and I've been told that Sid's okay. By the way, I don't think it was anything major. I literally just had I'm doing this on my
Ugh.
phone. I had a text pop up from someone 5 minutes later that said or 5 minutes ago that said he's okay. So
Okay, good. Oof.
breaking news for the listeners. We need them to know
Yes.
this.
Please.
But
Yes, that's going out immediately. He's
I,
okay.
yeah, I don't think it's anything serious. So that's good. But yeah, they are being overly careful right now about every bit of information
Yeah.
that is released, which I get it.
You have to
Trust
be. You have to
people.
be.
People in my line of work, we get annoyed with the whole lower body injury thing, but
Oh my
but it,
gosh.
things are a little different right now, and we know
Yeah.
that. So yeah, but all systems are go. They really look good. Jake Gensel was healthy
I
again.
was going to ask about him because that was like
Yeah,
the one positive that came out of this, was that, like, he was a very, very maybe to come back for the end of the playoffs
right,
before any of this happened. And even that was a stretch because
right.
of
Yeah, I mean,
how bad
he,
yeah.
yeah, he may have been able to come back for the Cup final in June, maybe, but I never felt like it was all that likely.
Yeah.
But now he's 100%.
Ugh,
He was taking hits today, and he scored 2 goals in the scrimmage.
I heard.
Playing with Crosby and Sherry. No, he looks great. I think nobody knows what to expect.
Yeah.
I mean, this summer is going to be it's hockey in August. I don't know what to expect, but I think it helps the Penguins more than just about any team. I really believe that because you get Gensel back; he's a legitimate star player, and also let's be honest, most of their best players are in their 30s.
Yeah.
Crosby, so they get 4 months off. They are essentially fresh, like they would be at the start of
Yep.
a season. So I'm not going to call the Penguins the favorite necessarily to come out of the East. I mean, Boston's a great team, and
Yeah.
you look at what the record was, they probably deserve that distinction, and they also give the Penguins a lot of trouble the last few years.
Always. Oh God, I hate playing Boston.
Right, as you should. But but I mean, the Penguins are one of the best teams in the East. They're healthy, they're
Yeah.
fresh, so I think they have a chance to make a real run here.
Yeah, they were looking really good up until they had the home and home against Toronto back in February.
Hmm?
And there was like a distinctive shift. I was at the game against Toronto here,
Yes,
and it would, like, the first half they looked stellar. And then
season. Yes, you
yeah, they
remember.
looked fantastic. Oh my gosh, yes, I remember. It was
But then all of
insane.
a sudden, like halfway through the game, right?
Uh-huh. Halfway through the game, they were just like fending them off, essentially. They weren't on the attack, they weren't playing aggressive. They were just like
Hmm.
backpedaling, it felt like. And then they played in Toronto and were
Yeah,
trash.
right.
And then they went on that insane losing streak on the West Coast against a bunch of
Mhm.
teams who weren't even in contention. But, like,
Yeah.
when that kind of thing happens, that was right after the trade deadline. There were so many injuries that were starting to catch up to them. And then I remember, this feels like a decade ago at this point, but I remember Sullivan was going back and forth between Murray and Jari almost every night. And I I'm not going to claim to have any type of goalie intelligence. I don't know what works best, but as an outsider watching both of those guys go back and forth every single game, it felt like that wasn't helping either one of them. So for you, somebody who is more intently covering the game, what was going on there with the goalie
Well,
thing, the dynamic?
it's interesting, and that, by the way, is going to be a storyline. So, and I can tell you from being at camp all week, Jari has looked better than Murray. Murray hasn't
Really?
looked Murray hasn't looked horrible by any stretch, but I don't think he's just looked okay. Jari has been outstanding.
Good for
Um,
him.
Goalies want to play, and then
Mhm.
Murray in particular is a guy like Matt. Matt's a really good guy, and he would never say anything. But I could tell just watching his body language, and I've covered him long enough, I think he was getting a little annoyed that he wasn't getting more playing time.
Mm,
I don't think he'd ever say it. I don't think he'd rock the boat. He's not that kind of a guy. But I, I just I had that sense from him that he really wanted to play more, and he was starting to play a little bit better in March. He had that really good game in Buffalo right before the stoppage where they
I
didn't
remember
play great.
that. Hmm.
They didn't play great that game. He did, and Jari was so good all season. I thought his play declined a little bit in
Yeah.
February. He wasn't bad. I just thought he's kind of average.
Tapered off. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
So I mean, they're not both going to be in Pittsburgh long term.
Hmm.
Uh, the salary cap's not going to allow that. I think there's a good chance Murray will be traded in the next year. I felt that for a while. Jim Rutherford told me about a month ago that long term, because of the salary cap not going up, that it's going to be really hard to keep both of them.
Yeah.
So, Murray's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's going to command more money. I don't know that
Hmm.
they want to pay him what he wants. But Mike Sullivan's going to have his hands full this summer making the right choices in net because they're both talented. We know Jari is very gifted physically, and we know Murray can win a Stanley Cup because he's done it twice.
Yep.
But you still have to have the right guy playing at the right time. And
Hmm.
I'm not an expert on goalies either. It's not easy for me to figure out who's technically more sound on one day or whatever, who's fundamentally better. Just a hard thing to see, I think.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an interesting story. It really is.
Yeah. And I wasn't able to watch the scrimmage today, which was a huge bummer for me. But I just very briefly perused Twitter and saw that there were a couple of things that kind of like recurring themes, and one
Mhm.
was that Jari was playing significantly better than Murray. And it looked like, so what were the squad lineups? Like who is with who? I know it was black versus white and
Yeah,
then gold. That's all I
I
know.
I need to mention that. Did Jari play better than Murray? Yes, obviously.
Hmm.
Jari did not give up a goal. Murray gave up 7. However, the team Murray was facing, he had to face Crosby, Gensel, Sherry,
Oh, geez.
Malkin, Zucker, and Rust, and Letang and Dumoulin. Whereas Jari was facing the third and fourth line, basically. So I would,
Okay. That clears it up quite a bit.
yeah, and that's nothing against Tristan. He stopped a couple of breakaways. He looked great. I mean, he has, but Murray was facing like Crosby and Malkin with wide open looks. So,
And this is the first kind of faux gameplay that they've had
right,
since March.
March,
Yeah.
right?
So that is something that you do need to take into account. And
Yeah,
I had no idea that it was all of the stars packed on
yeah.
one side
It,
against Murray.
it was a very stacked lineup. Now, that said, just from watching practice the last few days, I think Jari's been a lot better. I
Mm,
think he's sharper. But also, and I don't know what it is with Penguins fans. They always have to pick which goalie they like the best, and then they think you're showing favoritism. It drives me nuts.
it's
The,
insane. It's
the
ridiculous.
Fleury were
Yeah.
amazing, really. But now I wrote something the other day, and I wrote, Jari's been better so far. A Murray member of the fan base said, "Oh, you're showing favoritism." I'm like, nah, I'm not. Like, and you have to. Murray doesn't always look good in practice. Neither did Fleury. If you ever saw Fleury practice, you'd be like, "This guy's no good." Then you watch him. Some guys just aren't great practice players, and Jari kind of
Fair.
is.
Mm,
Jari, man, he's just locked in right now. But I like Jari. I think he might be more physically gifted. He's more athletic than Matt. Matt's a bigger
mm,
guy.
yeah. He's so tall.
But you know what? I think they're going to need both of them because there's going to be back-to-back games where they might change up the goalie.
Hmm.
Um, they're going to be so active. There's not going to be breaks in between games. People are going to get hurt. You're going to need a couple of good goalies, and even having
Yeah.
Casey Smith as the number 3 goalie is a pretty nice option. So it'll be interesting. But we kind of know what the lineup is going to be if everyone's
Hmm.
healthy. The goaltending, though, that's kind of the hot button topic right now.
Yeah. Which isn't it always? You already mentioned that Pittsburgh fans get very heated about goalies, like, and over the goalie situation. And I remember people are still all worked up over Flurry. Like I don't. people will just jump into conversations and bring him up. And it's like, he's been gone. He's been gone for
Yeah.
3 years. You have to let it go.
And the funny thing about him is when Fleury was the goaltender here, half the fans couldn't stand him,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like he's been, you know, it's kind of like when somebody dies and they become like a bigger deal after their death or
Yeah.
something.
You
Like,
can kind of like idealize them in your mind or
yeah,
something.
he was a very polarizing figure. I mean, everybody always liked him on a personal
Mm-hmm.
level, and if I got to deal with him daily, he's one of my favorite people in the world. So that's totally understandable. And he was a great talent. He was a great goalie when he was here, but he had his ups and downs. And but now to hear people talk that he was Patrick Waugh or something when he was here, and I don't think he was treated that way necessarily, and
Mm-mm.
I don't put him on that level either. It used to be like 10 years ago, there was kind of the Sid and Gino factions as well. To which I would always tell people, just be very, very grateful they both play for your team and just cheer for both of them
Yeah.
accordingly. Maybe ask for the Sid jersey for your birthday and Gino for Christmas or whatever. Like, it's okay. You're allowed to cheer for both.
Yeah.
And I said about Murray and Jari now, just cheer for the guy with the pads on who's stopping the pucks.
I know, because ultimately it doesn't matter what we as fans think. Whoever is in goal for a reason. And like, that's the guy.
Right.
And even looking back at the 2017 Cup run, like we wouldn't have won if we didn't have both of them, because Murray got hurt against Columbus before we even started the game, and Fleury had to come in, and he played through those first two series against Columbus and Washington like on his head. He was
Yes.
playing out of his mind against
Oh,
unreal.
totally. And the way it worked out, the athleticism that was required to beat that Capitals team and some of the saves Fleury had to make, especially in Game 7, I don't know if Murray could have. I don't know
Mhm.
if that would have been a good matchup for him, but also the mental toughness that it took for Murray to win a
Yeah.
double overtime Game 7 game, and to go into Nashville and win a
Yep.
scoreless game. With all due respect to Flower, who I love, he certainly melted down in
Mhm.
similar situations in the past. So I felt like Mike Sullivan, in retrospect, played it absolutely perfectly. They did need both of
Yeah.
them. They were both great when they had to be. And we'll see. I really think Murray will be the guy to start the playoffs. I still would lean in that way. But if
Mhm.
he struggles early, I don't think they'll leave him in for long because they know how good Jari is.
Yeah, he's excellent. He made the All-Star team. So he has proven that he has the ability to carry the team when he needs to. And I, even with no real insight to the team, that's just kind of my gut. I feel like Murray's going to be the guy to start the playoffs. And I think that as a two-time Stanley Cup champion, he kind of has earned that, because
Yeah.
he's proven that he can play up to that level in the postseason. But these are totally different circumstances. So I don't think that that guarantees him the starting spot throughout the entire thing, depending on how far the Penguins make it into the
No,
postseason.
and the fact is, Jordan, that yes, he has won 2 cups, and I think because of that, he does deserve to be the guy to start.
Mhm.
I agree with you. But the last 2 or 3 years, he hasn't been quite the same guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he just
Yeah.
and we can't ignore that. And Mike Sullivan can't ignore that. You still, with goalies, need to go with the hot hand at some point.
Yeah.
And Jari, he doesn't have any Stanley Cup playoff experience. Is that a concern? Of course,
Hmm.
it is. It's a different animal, whether there's fans in the building or not. It's still the playoffs. So I think they want Murray to get hot and to be the guy. I think that's most comfortable probably for the
Hmm.
coaching staff. But he hasn't looked great. We'll see. But there's probably going to be some decisions that have to be made.
Yeah. That sounds about right. But I I think for me, I trust Mike Sullivan to make the right call, even though there has been a lot of criticism lobbied in his direction because of the the lineup decisions he's made in the past. But I don't know, with all of the injuries that we had last season and our place in the standings at the end of, or what ended up being the end of the season,
Mhm.
like he he did make some questionable decisions in my perspective, but he still had the team in contention
Hmm.
going into March, and I trust him to do what's best for the team.
Right. No, I agree. I don't agree with every decision he makes either,
Mhm.
but man, it's not easy being the coach. I mean, you're always going to be second guessed. Um, for the most part, I do agree with him, and you cannot argue with his track record of success. The fact
Yeah.
is, he's been here for fewer than 5 years, and he's won 2 Stanley Cups. And very few nights can you say, "Man, they sucked tonight. They didn't
Yeah.
show up." Rare. And they're not an easy team to coach. And I know they're talented, but talented people aren't easy to coach. Sid's the
Mhm.
nicest guy in the world, but he's still particular, and he's still a star player, and star players aren't
Mhm.
always. Gino can be a pain. Letang can be a pain, and they can. They've great players have egos. That doesn't mean they're
Yeah.
bad people. They're
Yeah.
not good people in this case. They really are, but it's still not easy, and it takes the right personality, I think, to coach them. And I really, this is the kind of group that needs a kick in the butt sometimes. And Mike Sullivan, when he yells, like I get a little scared when he yells when I'm just in the press box. I wouldn't want to make Sully mad, so I don't think they do either.
That's a good thing. That's what you want.
Oh yeah,
You want a coach that's gonna motivate you and also kind of terrify you just a little bit. Just a little bit.
exactly.
Yeah.
I remember, I'll never forget what Ian Cole told me. And Ian Cole and Sully didn't always get along very well.
Mhm.
But he told me, he said, I didn't always like Sully. Like, guys didn't always like him, but every single one of us respected him. He said,
Mhm.
we honestly did. We respect the hell out of that guy.
Yeah.
And,
That's the
something to,
most important thing.
yeah. And if a coach loses that, Mike Johnston, God bless him, he was a nice man. They had no respect for him at all. They walked all
Mm,
over him. They do not treat Mike Sullivan that way.
that's good. That's good. I like to hear that. And so it's Gensel, Crosby, and Sherry, which
Correct.
was kind of what I was expecting
Hmm.
now that all the guys are kind of healthy again because of how Sully utilized Sherry when he was here the last time before
Right.
we traded him. And it at least my instinct was saying that because of how much playing with Crosby elevated Connor's game. How has
Hmm.
he looked next to Sid and Jake?
Good. He had a great scrimmage today. In fact, he set up Crosby and Gensel for goals. In fact, both with pretty passes from behind the net. Sherry, Sid loves playing with him. He always has. They just read off of each other really well.
Mm,
The line has certainly been successful in the past. I don't know how valuable of an NHL player Sherry is.
mm,
You have him on a third or fourth line, or if he's not playing with talent, but for whatever reason, he works well with those two guys. He does have talent.
mm-hmm.
He's not a big guy, but they don't play, a power game. They're not trying to cycle down low with Connor Sherry. They just want him to use his speed
Yeah.
and his hockey smarts and his skill. And those three have always played off of each other really well. And I look at the whole top six. It's going to be those three together. And the second line, not the first line, but the second line is Evgeny Malkin with Jason Zucker and Brian Rust.
That
That, I
God,
mean,
I said
right.
this in the last episode, but that on basically any other team is first line.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. And Malkin has been the best player in camp this week. He's been, he's doing that stuff. You can tell when he's feeling it, like when he's stealing the puck from his teammates and just kind of pushing people out of the way. Like that's the kind of stuff he's doing in camp. He's fired up. I know.
good.
I know you like to hear that. I can tell.
I
No,
love
he
it.
he is. He's just got that look in his eye right now. So if that's your second line with Brian Rust having such of a great season,
Mm. He
I
was
believe.
an all-star. He was
Yeah.
so good.
Oh, he's been great. Jason Zucker is a really good player, and he and Malkin have already showed some chemistry. I think they'll be good
Good.
together. How's that for a top six? I mean,
Oh my
that's
God.
pretty.
And so you have that, and then the third line, I know Hornquist has been out and they haven't really disclosed anything with that, but
Great.
what really excites me is the fourth line with Aston Reese and Bluger and Tanev,
Yeah.
because those guys are all really fast and they're really scrappy. And like, if you have a fourth line that can keep the puck away from the other team, even if they're not necessarily generating goals, if they can just wear down the
Hmm.
other fourth line and play really well defensively, like that is awesome because you're just going to exhaust
Yeah,
them.
it's a great line. All season long, really, they have been so steady. And you'll see this because they're all so good defensively. If the Penguins have a lead in the third period of a playoff game, they might play that line more than the third line,
Mm,
really. Like, it wouldn't surprise me because those guys, Zach Aston Reese, I don't look at the metrics very often. His
mm-hmm.
defensive metrics are off the charts. He's a good defensive
Really?
player. Teddy Bluger's a very good two-way center. I like him more and more. And Tanev, I see you've got Tanev up on your wall, so you must be a fan.
I do. I love him
I mean, this
because,
guy,
geez,
yeah.
he's so good. And it's not even because like he's not out there scoring goals every single night, but the thing that has always, we just got him this season, but the thing that's stood out to me about him is one, his speed, and kind of in the same vein of like Carl Hagelin, very, very
Mhm.
fast. But he would, whenever he would be on the ice, just like be after the puck. Like from the minute he stepped on
Oh, yeah.
to the second he got off for a line change, like there was no slowing him down.
Uh,
And he's just an excellent
right.
aggressive player.
Well,
And I
yeah,
love that.
he plays with an edge. I mean, he's a
Mhm.
physical player. He will hit you. Such of a good penalty killer. He gives you like a two. He gives you a 2-on-1 shorthanded every game because he's so fast.
Yeah.
To have him, I mean, I have to think on most teams he'd be on a third line at least. And I know he doesn't have the greatest hands in the world, but if he had great hands, like he'd be Pavel Bure or something, and they wouldn't be able to afford him.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think he was a great sign. Just the energy he brings every single game, the penalties he draws. I love his game. And I don't know this, of course, but he strikes me as the kind of guy that will do some good things in the playoffs. He just seems like kind of a clutch guy who's going
Yep.
to score you a big goal when you need it.
Yeah. Kind of like Max Talbot in the
Yeah.
2009 Stanley Cup Finals. Like you don't need every single guy to be on the same level as Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. You just need the right guy to step up at the right time. And
Yeah.
he has that energy where
No, he
anything can
does.
happen when he's on the ice, and that's what I love about him. Because like
No,
he
no.
might not score a ton of goals, but it you just never know.
Yeah, he just plays with an intensity too.
Hmm.
And you know what he does? He gives the Penguins a really fast guy on every line.
Yep.
Like Jared McCann's really fast, your third line center. You've got Tanev on your fourth line. You've got Rust and Zucker can both fly on the second line, and Crosby can still really skate, obviously. And Sherry and Gensel all can. So there's just
Yeah.
speed on every line. That's exactly how they want to play, how they want to win. So, yes, Tanev was a very important addition for them.
Yeah. I'm so thrilled that he's on the team for a while. I think that was a good signing. I don't know anything about contracts, so I'm not going to pretend like I understand what's going on there, but I think that acquisition just in and of itself, very good by
Uh,
Jim Rutherford.
and he took a lot of heat for that deal at the time because he gave him 6 years. And I asked
Hmm.
him about it. I actually sent him a text. I said 6 years with a question mark. I felt like kind of a jerk. I'm like, oh no, I just made Jim mad. And he called me. He said it's the only way I was going to get him. Like everybody else wanted this guy too, so I gave him
Yeah,
6 years. And I think it was a great signing. He's only 28, I think, so he's still going to be able to skate like that for a few more years. I would think he keeps himself in phenomenal condition.
good,
So no, I really like everything about that signing. He's a very good player.
man. Yeah, and so the defensive pairings, Dumoulin and Letang, and then Pedersen and Marino. How's Marino looking?
Fabulous.
Oh, good.
He, he's been he's been so good. It was I think the second practice at the training camp. I looked at Phil Bork. We like have our masks on, so we're like yelling to each other, trying to hear. I said, "You know who looks really great?" And before I could say it, he says, "Marino." I said, "Yes." Jeez, this guy. I mean, he he's special. And Jim Rutherford made a good point a few weeks ago. He said, "We've had 4 months off. This is kind of like his second season now. He's not really a rookie
Yeah,
anymore." And I didn't think of it that way, but it's true. And he just looks so composed. He's so smart, great skill. He'll be the Penguins' #1 defenseman in a couple of years. I mean, that he was probably their best defenseman this season. And
He
that's,
played consistently the best by
yeah,
far.
it's not a knock on. I mean, when Letang has a bad stretch, everybody can see it because he doesn't make subtle mistakes when he struggles. John doesn't have his talent. Who does?
Yeah.
But Dumoulin's a great player for what I mean.
Yeah, but he
Doesn't
was
help
injured for a long time. He was out for a while.
impacted the Penguins badly without him. He's a very important piece. But this Marino kid is special. He's looked really. He gives him a good top four. Pettersson's not a great player, but he's solid. He's not going to hurt you. I think they should be a pretty good pairing. It's one of the better top fours in hockey, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no way that they're not in the conversation for top 5 in the league. Like they're very good. They're very consistent. And I remember the night. Did we get Dumoulin and Marino back the same night, or was that a staggered return?
Against Ottawa. I think it was against Ottawa.
Yeah, and they came out and Marino scored a goal within like a minute.
That's right.
Oh, it was insane how obvious it was that we had really missed them.
Oh, no question. And then Dumoulin, to me, Brian Dumoulin's one of the most underappreciated players in hockey. He is so solid defensively, makes such good decisions with the puck, makes crystal time. Dumoulin, you win Stanley Cups with guys like Brian Dumoulin. You need responsible defensemen that play the game he plays, and still helps your transition game too. So, no, I'm telling you, this is a good team. On paper, there are not many teams better than them, and they are fresh. They look really hungry to me. So this could. So we need something to get excited about right now. So
I agree. It's been bleak.
Oh, that's a great word for it. It's been incredibly bleak, in fact. So maybe August and September and into October, who knows? It wouldn't shock me at all if they make a run.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for. And I could very well see, I've been saying this a lot, final between us and Colorado. I would love to see that because of the talent on both sides of the puck. Like that would be so much fun to watch.
That was my favorite game of the season, in fact, just from a fan standpoint, just watching hockey. I actually wasn't there. Rob Rossi was there in Denver for us. I was watching that one from home. But Penguins beat the Avs in overtime in Denver in January. That was a great hockey game. Oh, man. Like when Nathan McKinnon has the puck, he's so fast. Like it's frightening, right? But, I mean, the Penguins are so talented to it. That would be very cool. I would be okay with that Stanley Cup final matchup.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully they can do some really cool stuff and make a deep run. But if nothing else, hockey's coming back. So that's a good thing no matter what. We'll at least get 3 games to watch. So hopefully more.
I'm thinking it will be more.
Yeah.
It's nice to have sports back in our lives in general. So I think the Pirates start the 24th, I think it is.
Yeah, that's Friday.
Next Friday.
They're playing the Cardinals. Yeah, so that's
awesome.
awesome.
Oh, I have to tell you a cute story, by the way, speaking of that. In fact, hold on, I can read it to you as I got it right here. So a friend of mine makes masks, right?
Yeah.
And I sent Doc Emmerich a Pirates mask because he loves the Pirates. He wrote a letter to me. Hi, Josh. So good of, and he sent $25 in cash in the envelope. He says, so good of you to send the mask. Bucks open in St. Louis. God help us. Please send the mask to the craftsman. As ever, Doc. And look at the paper. He's got PNC Park on his notebook paper. How great is that?
I love him so much.
He's the nicest man on earth. He truly is. He is a saint of a man. I am lucky to know him. And so, yes, I have to deliver the $25 today to my friend Sue.
That's amazing. Oh, he is so adorable. I can't wait to hear his voice again. Oh my gosh.
I have missed it. I know we actually had him on a podcast about a month or two ago, and I didn't want it to stop because like Doc makes me feel better about life in general. Yeah. He's kind of coach. Like, he's one of those people, he's a better human being than you are, but you want to try to live up to him a little bit. Like, he's just like up here.
Yeah.
But he's a special guy.
Oh, that's just incredible. I didn't know he was a Pirates fan.
Loves the
That's
Pirates.
amazing. Good. I mean,
Now listen to the next time he broadcasts a game. He always makes little Pirates references during broadcasts.
how I
He
missed
loves
that.
the Pirates. Oh,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Man, I love that. Well, yeah, the Pirates play Friday. Penguins are coming back August 1st, but they play against the Flyers on the 28th. So that'll be their first
Yeah, the
blood.
exhibition boring. Like that one could get a little violent given the
Yeah,
teams that are involved. So let's hope nobody gets hurt in that one.
I
But
know that made me nervous a little bit, but hopefully
I
both sides will
yeah,
keep it.
did that. I'm sorry, but
Gosh.
it'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be good. I'm glad sports are back.
Mm.
And it's always great to be able to have real time conversations about sports because I missed it a lot.
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah.
No, it's trust me, I did. Even though I do it for a living, like I never take it for granted. It's part of our lives, and I
Yeah.
have very much. So I hope it's here to stay again.
I hope so too. Well, hopefully we're on the back
Yeah,
end
right.
of this thing.
Yes.
Geez. Well, thank you so much, Josh. This was awesome. I had a great time. I hope you had a great time too.
I did. No, it was my pleasure. Anytime you'd like me to join you in the future, it would be my pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully after a Stanley Cup
I
victory. That
I
would,
would make time for that.
yeah.
Absolutely. Or even during the playoffs, whenever.
Yeah, I'll hit you up for sure because this was a lot of fun and the Penguins are my favorite team. Don't tell the Steelers. The Pirates, I don't. They're fine, but
My lips are
yeah.
sealed.
But thank you. Seriously, I had a great time. It was
My
awesome.
pleasure. Thank you.
Cool. Well, you have a good one.
All right, you too.
Bye.